A tipping point is defined as a point of inevitability. So, for instance, in a battle, is it now inevitable that one side is going to win or lose? So in that sense, I'm going to say no, Hamilton has not reached an economic tipping point. We've had a lot of good news, but there's also still a lot of bad news going out there. For instance, we have more out commuters who leave the city every day to find employment outside the city than come into the city. We have a bit of a setback on the GO service that we thought was going to be all day by the time of the Pan Am Games. Now it looks like it's going to be delayed. So I don't want to be a negative Nelly here. If the tipping point, if you can think of it as a percentage, is 51%, that's when you tip to something else. We're creeping up on 35, 40%, but we still need to keep working. There's a lot more work to do before we get there. So it's better news than it was 5 years ago. Still a little ways away for inevitability.
There's no question. At no time in my adult life have I seen the kind of momentum economically, socially, architecturally that we're seeing now. Hamilton is got a momentum that I suspect is unstoppable, and I think the challenge is whether or not we're going to expedite that momentum by making smart, progressive decisions, or whether or not we're going to be laggards. And I think we have a remarkable opportunity if we choose well, if we're courageous, and if we look to the future.
The tipping point business-wise, with people moving to Hamilton, I think Hamilton has reached the tipping point, and it's only going up and up. I feel that there are a lot of young entrepreneurs in Hamilton that are really focused on bringing the city's value up and its appeal up for people to move here or to start businesses here. So yes, I think that Hamilton's going in the right direction.
Hamilton is changing for the worse. It's going down. Every day I come down here and there's a different store being boarded up or there's a different place being torn down. I'm getting sick of it.
I think Hamilton has reached a tipping point. In fact, it's kind of what we're seeing right now is a snowball effect. It's just the momentum is so great. I think we're seeing new housing starts, we're seeing condo developments, we're seeing movement dip back downtown in a way that we've never, ever seen since the place was built. So I think, I think it has hit the tipping point for sure.
I've been back in Hamilton now, grew up here, but was in Toronto for 25 years, been back almost 10, and yeah, I do think that we've reached a tipping point. And I used to be a consultant in Toronto, did strategic planning. There's sort of a process you use. There's a SWOT analysis. There's also something called PEST. This is important because it's political, economic, social, and technological. So if you look at tipping point and you say, well, technologically, have we reached a tipping point? I think social media alone has caused us to tip. Socially, I think, yes, citizens are more engaged now than they were even when I came back, and certainly when I cast back when I was here until 1980. Citizens are more engaged now than they ever were. Economically, building permits are record-breaking. Politically is the issue. I don't think we've reached a tipping point politically. I think we still have old-style politics. They haven't caught up with the economic, the social, and the technological. I think they will, and we certainly have some councillors who are there, but we have a lot who aren't. So we've got some room to grow yet.
No, it's way past the tipping point. We're beyond that. I walked James Street. I walked it here tonight. All the outdoor patios going. Take a look at Main Street and what's happening with our downtown core. Take a look at all our communities. Take $1.5 billion in new building permits. That's more than Toronto, more than Brampton, more than Mississauga. And that's a hard measurement. That's an owner coming in, paying his development charges and paying for his building permit with a low bid contractor. And so we're way beyond the tipping point. We're on the slide. We got GO Transit coming. Not clear about how often the trains are, so we got our little work to do there. But Toronto has found us. We're no longer that gritty city as a view from the Skyway. Some people come down 403 and up the escarpment and go to the Canadian Open, and they see that we're a whole different city. We have uncongested roads. We have real estate that's affordable. And so, past the tipping point, we've been discovered.
I do. I think more so the downtown core as they've tried to progress with. It's seen a lot of change since I was, quite younger with the change of the bus station and whatnot and improvements to Gore. I just don't necessarily think at the pace that everyone was expecting, especially the politicians who are trying to get change down here. But there's definitely been a great improvement to what it's been, for sure.
I think Hamilton is past the tipping point. I think we are on our way to great things and reestablishing ourselves again as a very, very prominent, successful, vibrant city. I personally am so happy to see all the young entrepreneurs and the groups that have come out of that, such as YEP and Hive, and there's dozens of them. And I think they are bringing a vibrancy to this city that is much needed.
Aspects of us are starting to reach a tipping point, but I think collectively we're not. There's segments of the population, and like I'll talk maybe on our large media. I think they're more focused down the road than they are on Hamilton, because that's where the money is, so they don't really want to help this community as much as they possibly could, and that's not very helpful as far as the tipping point goes. I think as far as people working together on trying to build a better downtown, I think we're reaching a little bit of a tipping point there. And as far as I think we're growing in some aspects as far as culturally in that. But then when we kind of turn our back on the velodrome, something like that, I think collectively, at our city hall, that's not reaching a tipping point in the right direction there. I think we're inching towards a tipping point, and I'd like to see us do something, and a great example is with the stadium, that we completely dropped the ball in the stadium. We put it in the same place it's been for 100 and something years, and nothing's happened in 100 something years where it presently is and will be again for the next 100 years. So, again, getting close.
Has Hamilton reached the tipping point, and why? Well, it's, I would say, well beyond the tipping point. It's pretty evident across the country, Hamilton is regarded as one of the top places to invest. So, and that's not us saying that, that's others that are publishing that. So it's beyond the tipping point. It's really a question of the momentum and ensuring that we can be as successful as possible. So that's kind of where we're at.
I think it's gone a little worse.
The only difference I see with downtown Hamilton is the park here, right where I sit. Otherwise, no. Too much crackhead on the street. They need to get rid of them, and we don't like that.
Well, there's one area where we just might have, and that is in taxation. We have a problem in Hamilton where our taxes are simply too high. And the city knows it. For example, the city is not in favor of new funding ideas or revenue tools for Metrolink's transit expansion, because they've hit the wall, because they know that Hamilton citizens have hit the wall for new taxes. So if the tipping point is to be defined as the break point for taxation, we just might have.
Has Hamilton reached its tipping point? I don't know, and I think we're just about there. We're just getting there. There's all these pieces of the puzzle. There's the waterfront with Sarcoa. There's the Hamilton James Street Art Crawl, which are all pieces of this big puzzle that eventually will get us to the tip and over. More and more people are finding out about this jewel in Hamilton with our real estate values so reasonable. A person could afford a home here, work here, live here, and even live here and travel to Toronto if they have to, because we are going to be getting all-day GO train service with a brand new terminal right on James Street at Murray. And you know what? Hamilton will reach that tipping point, and I think it'll happen sooner than later.
I'm surprised it's taken this long, but yeah, I've been a Hamiltonian for a lot of years. I was born in this city, and I've seen a lot of changes in my 56 years. So, I think it's out for the better. I really do.
We certainly have a lot of room to grow. I'm hesitant to say that we have not reached it, for I will be accused of being a naysayer and stuff. But I feel as though when we start high-fiving ourselves, we detract from actually getting the work that needs to be done. Hamilton has come a long way on some fronts and has a long, long way to go on others. If we're in an arts and cultural renaissance, and if our real estate continues to move, our poverty issues continue to grow, we have a major unemployment problem and underemployment problem in this city. So no, and I think the tipping point means you've reached the critical mass where things are good and everything starts piling on in the good front. So So no, but I'm not a naysayer. I love the city too.
You know, I think Hamilton has reached its tipping point. It's because when I go to Toronto and say, I live in Hamilton, no longer do I get snickers. People saying, oh my God, Hamilton. They're like, I'm looking to come to Hamilton to live. And I know a friend who has moved to Hamilton. I know people who are calling me daily to say, I want to invest in Hamilton, who never thought of coming to Hamilton. So to me, I've seen there is a tipping point, and Hamilton, I think, is in that direction.
I believe that Hamilton is on its way to the tipping point. I think there's still a lot of discovery going on, and I think that that's fantastic. I think there's a great sense of adventure happening in Hamilton. There's a fantastic entrepreneurial spirit, and I think it's all those things coming together right now that is going to send Hamilton over the tipping point. But I still think that there's still, lots of bumps and hurdles to be found and overcome along the way. So I don't quite think we're there yet, but I do definitely believe we're on our way.
Absolutely. I think Hamilton has reached that tipping point. For me, when you say tipping point, I think it's a combination of a lot of small things that are happening. And if you look at James Street, if you look at all the other things going on, Locke Street this weekend, if you look at the waterfront, if you look at everything that's going on in the various precincts and neighborhoods around the city, I think Hamilton absolutely has reached that tipping point, and I think there's no stopping where we can go and what we can do now.
I like to think we hit the tipping point a few years ago. We were at a crossroads and we had to make some decisions, and the decisions were about being progressive, creating a community that we can be proud of, and a community that will thrive. And I think that in the last couple of years, we've seen significant investment in this community, breaking records and building permits. You're seeing a transition take place in the lower city with the artists, the culture, and more condo buildings, more hotels. So I believe that we've crossed that crossroads. We hit the tipping point probably about 2 years ago.
Hamilton's a change. I believe that the police are doing a good job in certain aspects. But I think that, they're harassing people that shouldn't be harassed. Like me, myself, I do have a bad past. I have a criminal record in that. But there's no need to go to the extremity that they're going to.
I think we're on the brink, and I think we have been, forever. I was born and raised here, lived here all my life. I've been an elected representative for going on 30 years in Hamilton. So I've seen the tough times. I've seen the good times. What is awaiting us are the great times. There's been a number of stories in the last few years from influential places such as the Financial Times of London. There's a Calgary-based real estate network. There are a number of key organizations, quite frankly, around the world who look at the cities that are the place to be for the future. And Canada is always in the upper percentile, or Hamilton rather. Our geography is amazing, given how close we are to Toronto, how close we are to the border. It's not that far away to the nation's capital. This is one of the key geographical places to be in. So if you take a look at everything, you take a look at everybody that's looking at us, to me, we're just sort of we're sitting there ready to hit that tipping point.
I absolutely think that Hamilton has reached a tipping point because this is the first time in a long time that the people of Hamilton are starting to speak about the city with pride, with excitement, and obviously all of the wonderful information that economic development has been sharing with the city about building permit records and all of that wonderful information, that's permeating throughout the not only the business community but in the streets as well with the people on the ground. We've got some big name companies interested in Hamilton wanting to make things happen in Hamilton. So I absolutely believe that Hamilton is at the tipping point.
It's turned into a dump. It's turned into a dump. There used to be fun in this city. There's no fun here now. And what's happened to downtown is can't come and feed the pigeons, which I think is ridiculous. No smoking in the park, which is stupid. But all the garbage you see on the street, we never used to see. It used to be fun down here. It used to be safe down here. It's not now. Lots of work, no work. What it turned into.
I definitely think so. I'm newer to Hamilton, but what I'm seeing here is a huge diversity of different types of people coming to Hamilton. People really active and engaged in their communities. There's a lot of opportunity here that I see, and it seems as though Hamilton is sort of a diamond in the rough, so to speak. And we're starting to realize that. People are banding together and doing what they can to make sure that people realize what Hamilton has to offer. So, yes, it has reached a tipping point.
We've gone well past the tipping point. The tipping point happened a couple of years back, or a few years back. But things are really starting to happen in Hamilton now. It's a case of how much momentum we're going to gain and how fast things are going to happen. But the tipping point was passed a long time ago.
No, I think we have a long way to go still. There's still some things that need to be done downtown, and I think we're on the right track. We're getting there, but there's still a lot of work to be done. I think they dropped the ball as far as the stadium issue down near the waterfront, but there's not much we can do about that right now.
I think we're getting there. I don't think we're there quite yet, but I think we're moving from a steel town certainly to an innovation place. I'm working for Hamilton Health Sciences. I see how the innovation's coming, and through our technology as well, through the university and the academic institutions for sure.
I think Hamilton has reached a tipping point in a number of crucial areas in terms of the arts. It's certainly been over the edge of that tipping point for a few years. I see today, as we celebrate Hamilton Pride, that the LGBTQ community is at a place where we are now able to stand with more prominence and pride with our allies in this community, and so that's certainly coming along. And as was mentioned at Pride today, as we stood amidst all the construction in downtown Hamilton with so many great things happening, I'd say that'd be the third area where we're over the edge on the tipping point for sure.
Hamilton is at a very interesting juncture in its history, and I think Hamiltonians are starting to believe that we have a wonderful, wonderful city and that we have so much potential here. And it's a matter of the extension of that belief to now people beyond our boundaries. And once we encourage all of that, we're going to be golden.
I would say if it hasn't reached it, it's definitely on the cusp of it. We've lived around Ontario, I've lived around the States. I don't think I've ever seen a city that has a kind of collective vision of its own future, where people in all economic strata seem to be working towards the same goal. It's fast. I just moved here, like June 4th, our house closed, but it's fascinating.
Do I think Hamilton has reached a tipping point? I think we're very close. I think Hamilton, we kind of moved 3 steps forward and 2 back. The gentrification that's taken place on James Street is a huge step, but not only that, Ottawa Street, Locke, those kind of neighborhoods, they're making a huge impact in the city, but there's still things. I mean, Gore Park, it's making progress. It's not quite there yet, which is our main downtown core. And then you have things that we tend to forget about, like all the steel workers that are losing work. A lot of people in the city still live in poverty and don't make a living wage. So I think we're very, very close, but there's some areas that we kind of tend to forget about that we aren't focusing on, that with a little bit of work, I think we'll definitely tip at that point.
Absolutely. Every single day that I go to work, I meet new people coming into the city. There's a lot of excitement happening in our neighborhoods right now. And what we're seeing is a revitalization, not just in the downtown, but right across the entire city, from Flamborough to Stony Creek, from the mountain to the bay. We're seeing neighbors creating neighborhoods and communities coming together as one big city. It's great to see. It's very exciting.
I'm not sure if Hamilton's reached its tipping point. I know it's certainly on its way. I introduced myself as a member of this community. I've lived here all my life. So I think that there's a really great energy, and that some of the way people think is certainly changing, and I think that there's creativity and some balance coming back into conversations around, what is good for this city and where it can go. So yes, I think we are starting to tip, but we still have some things to work on, like, affordable housing. So that's one of the areas that I'm certainly concerned about and work in. And just making sure that maybe we have a living wage for people who live in this community. So if we're going to have all this really great positive energy for this city, let's think about making sure that everyone's included in that conversation. So that's why I'm saying that we're not quite tipped yet, that we could be tipping, but it really means that we have to engage everybody in that conversation.
Yes, absolutely. I was actually the grievance officer for the participatory budgeting process. What you saw at these meetings was people getting together from all across the walks of life, different cultures, different backgrounds, age groups, just anybody that lived in that area or was just interested in the process came out, and there was discussions. I've never seen such an open and creative discourse, just communication and discussions about how to make our neighborhoods better, safer, cleaner, and just growing from that bottom platform up.
Absolutely. I mean, Hamilton is really becoming the place to invest in real estate. We've got Jeff Pagan, we've got great developers in this city, we've got people doing projects. We have 5 cranes in the city right now. So I really believe we're definitely hit a tipping point.
Not yet, but a lot of good things are happening. I live downtown and, I see it, but it's coming along. There's a lot of possibility, but I mean, I always liked Hamilton the way it was anyway. I do really enjoy it. I've been here for 27 years, and I work downtown, I live downtown, so it is certainly, there's some changes and it's great. It's all wonderful.
I think that if we ask ourselves, what's the driver of a tipping point? Is it like an emerging new middle class? Yes, I think Hamilton has. I think there's lots of new things in live, work, and play here. Look at James Street North and look at new shops, new innovations in the Innovation Park. Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of little things are starting to add up to a tipping point.
I think we have a lot of synergy and energy that's starting up, but I think we still have a number of areas that we can grow from. And I think until we sort of get all those benefits, I'm not sure everyone in the community will be raised up. I mean, I think there's still some years to go with the Innovation Park and some of the spin-offs that could come from that. I think we've done very well with the arts and the smaller artisan type of things, but we still have a lot of office space that's empty, and the city has to figure out what it wants to do with that.
Absolutely, we've reached the tipping point. It's just kind of like this secret now that everybody's figured out that Hamilton is so awesome. I mean, you've got our housing prices going up. People from Toronto and everywhere are coming in to live here, to work here. There are more jobs now in Hamilton. We've got great transit, perhaps an LRT. We'll see how that one goes. But absolutely, I think that people are waking up to what a great community this is.
Hamilton has tipped. There's an energy about Hamilton, not only in Hamilton, but outside of Hamilton as well, throughout the entire Greater Toronto Hamilton area. The people that I talk to that I know back in Toronto, I lived there for 5 years, the people that I talked to before would kind of say, ew, Hamilton. Now it's, oh, Hamilton. So it's a very different attitude towards it, and I think that people are starting to recognize the vitality, the fact that this is a city unto itself. It's not just a suburb within the Greater Toronto Hamilton area. It's its own entity, and it's got its own history and its own beauty and its own vitality, and I think that people are starting to recognize it and they want to come here.
I don't think it has quite yet. I think we're on our way. So if you look where we were in the 60s and 70s, with downtown rocking and the steel mills fully employing folks, those were good days in Hamilton. I think we've been declining since that time, and I think probably we're at the highest point we've been, since that period of time. So you look at the downtown redevelopment, that's great stuff, obviously. The house prices in Ward 1, where I'm from, is fantastic, with people battling to get houses, paying $100,000 more than it's actually listed for. I think those are some of the indicators that we're on our way. Some other good stuff. But if you look at the poverty issues we still have in Hamilton, and the ability to pay that people have, the revenue, we just don't have the revenue yet in the city. We're not a rich enough city to say we've actually reached that point, the tipping point that we're in a totally strong trajectory now.
I think Hamilton is the city of opportunity for everybody. I have so many friends that are moving here from Toronto. The housing is cheaper. We have a wonderful hospital system, medical system, and I just love it here. It's, we were from here originally, and we moved away for a few years, and we just, we had to come back. It's our home, and it's where we feel most comfortable. It's where our family is. It's where our friends are, and we just love Hamilton, and I think there's so much opportunity available for the city.
I would say yes, because it looks like it's becoming more active. It seems like there's a lot more people coming here, and it's a lot like, it seems like there's a band playing every week here or every day, which is nice, and it's good to see a lot of people walking around. It seems like even the area, like it seems like it's becoming more and more developed. It seems like the construction going on here is helping like it have a better appearance overall, which is nice.
I don't think that we were ever below the tipping point. I think what we're seeing is more visibility of it. We're starting to see more of the chain reaction, which is we've got to the critical mass in a lot of places. We're not there in others, but what we're starting to see is a new generation taking hold and rebuilding the city.
I would say no. I guess I would probably say, what's the tipping point? Tipping point of what? I think there are a lot of things that we're moving forward. I think there are a lot of things that have progressed immensely over the last decade. Are we at the tipping point? I don't know. Like the tipping. I would really say the tipping point of what is the big question.